they still have whatever's going on with them. It's not like you've changed anybody or anything, but it gives you so much more power back when you forgive. How many times have we in our lives decided to forgive somebody? A friend has wronged you, has said something, somebody has said something really hurtful, and you have just decided to say, that's okay, that's all right, I'm going to forgive you for saying that. And it allows you to move on. It allows you to just go, I don't need to hold space for this anymore. I don't need to hold space for that emotion. I don't need to hold space for the recurring thoughts about that situation, because when you have true forgiveness, it is really letting go of that. Mm-hmm. It's the processing of that really heavy emotion, and it passes through you, and you can forgive that person, or you can forgive the situation, or whatever it is that you're forgiving, and just be at peace with yourself. Like, you're the one that's benefiting from the whole thing. And it's just such a loving thing to do.
Yeah, mine always happened depending on age. In my 20s and 30s, it took everything to forgive someone, because I don't know if it was, if I forgive you, I'm giving up something of me, or mm-hmm. I have to be right in order to validate whatever I'm talking about. But as I've aged, like exactly what you just said, Tracy, is that it's a weight off. It's breathing freer. It's everything.
Yeah.
Like forgiveness makes you light. And I don't, if that's a very powerful thing, that if you can learn that earlier on in life, that you don't have to hold that toxic energy.
Yes.
And I think for myself, learning through forgiveness didn't mean it was okay with what they did.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't okay for that person to, whatever the reason you forgave them. And it could have been the worst thing that person could ever have done to you. That forgiveness didn't mean you let them off the hook.
Right.
For wronging or hurting you, or whatever that emotion they put on you. It is what you guys were saying. It is a release of that anger and the hurt and the person, in a way. Mm-hmm. It is releasing that person, even if you're still a friend, or if they're a family member or whatever. There is there is a little bit of releasing in there.
Yeah.
That person might still be in your life, and they still can be a good friend, and they still could be everything, but there is a little bit of change in that dynamic. And that's okay, because you're building yourself and your self-care and self-love.
Yeah.
That took me a long time to figure that one out.
I think when we're younger, like Tracy, like you were saying, I think what we equate forgiveness to is condoning, like you were saying, yes. Michelle. It's like, if I forgive this person, I'm telling them it's okay to do this,
yeah, or
to be this way, or talk to me this way, or whatever. And I think we have to realize that forgiveness is they don't, even if we verbalize to themselves, I forgive you for what you've done. We don't know if they're even going to accept it, right? I mean, we have no control over how that person is going to take that and internalize it or be with it. It's what it's doing for us. Mm-hmm. That is what the important part of that is. Truly.
Yeah. Yes. I think forgiveness is one of the biggest blessings you can give yourself.
Mm.
And it's totally in your control.
It is
totally in your control. If you want to feel good or feel better, you can grant yourself that option to forgive someone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can forgive, but you can still put those boundaries around to make sure that doesn't happen again. You can still take control. Like you still, that forgiveness is you're releasing anger within, but you still can put that boundaries and that control around you so those persons can't do that to you again. It's not, like I said, you're not condoning what they're doing. You're not, forgiveness is not giving them permission to repeat it.
Yes, exactly.
That's not
And
forgiveness.
right. And there's also self-forgiveness, which I don't think we practice nearly enough, that we hold on to things in our past that we've done that we berate ourselves for, and it's 30 years later and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, you have such power to be able to forgive yourself for things that you've done, and the release of that. And again, it's not like you're saying I'm okay with what I did, right? I mean, if you hurt somebody or you did something that that it wasn't okay, it wasn't cool, it's like, okay, so that happened. But to be able to truly forgive yourself allows you to release that whole thing from your body, from your mind, because otherwise it takes up too much space.
So I'm going to share something if you guys don't mind.
Mhm.
So my stepdad passed from cancer in 2019. And 3 weeks later, no, 17 days later, my dad passed suddenly. And I spent the last 2 years, 2.5 years before they both passed, really spending more time caring for my stepfather than I did for my father. And now I would have conversations with my dad. They were both in their late 80s, lived in totally different spectrums of the United States, two different totally personalities. And when my dad passed suddenly, I had a lot of guilt. And I carried that guilt for 2 years until actually just a couple days ago. In talking with somebody who was helping me through it, they're like, you need to just sit down and have a conversation with him. I know he's passed, but you can still have a conversation with somebody. And it took me a while to sit and have the conversation because that guilt was bubbling so much within my chest because I felt I failed him in not being with him through his different traumas as he was getting older. And I did release it, and it took me a while. And then after I sat quietly with him and had a conversation, I journaled it out. And my last sentence is, I am sorry for what I did, but I release it. And that was, well, I'm sorry. But
Yeah.
I think I wanted to share that because I don't care what age you are.
Yeah.
If you are carrying some form of something you need to be forgiven for, you can, like you were saying, Tracy, self-forgive.
Yeah.
It is hard, but it's probably one of the most loving things you can do.
Yeah. And and I love that whole concept of talking to somebody, having that conversation with somebody, even if they've passed. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be a difficult conversation. You can have an incredibly loving conversation with somebody who's passed. I often talk to my dad. I often have a little picture of him right by my desk, and I'll sit and I'll chat with them while I'm having my coffee, and just like literally I talk out loud to the guy. Like, it's just, because he's that important, has always been that important in my life. And it's such a good feeling. Like, it makes me feel so good. It's like, it's a little thing I do for myself, but you can also have those conversations with your past self. Like, go back to when you were, if you're carrying stuff around from when you were 20 or for a teenager or whatever that looks like, you can go back and have that past self sit at the table and just have that conversation with her and say, okay, so, let's talk about this. Let's just work this out and get get past this so we're not always carrying around that baggage, you know, because we just carry around too much baggage.
So from a practical sense, what does that look like? You said have a conversation with yourself, have a conversation. So are you writing this down? Are you looking at yourself in the mirror? Are you like, when you say this, what if someone out there was like, I'm going to do that today, what would they do? They would just sit down and just start talking?
Yeah, you can sit right in front of an empty chair, sit in front of an empty chair and just say, okay, Tracy, so let's talk about this thing you keep thinking about. I don't, you know, like whatever the situation is, right? It's like, let's talk about this thing that you just keep repeating over and over and over in your mind. Why, like, why are you doing that? Tell me about what was going through your mind when you decided to act that way or do this thing or whatever that looked like, right? Like, I can't think of an example. Let's say, I really can't think of an example. Okay, here's an example that I did with myself. So I had a friend, and this friend I had, she was like a schoolgirl friend, right? And she was, I really appreciated her. I really liked her. But I don't think the situation was really that, you know, she didn't feel the same way about me. I was part of her like clique, but I wasn't like her good friend.
Not the inner circle.
not the inner circle, not the inner circle. And I did something that I wasn't very proud of, right? Like I kind of centered her out. I made her feel silly in front of a group of people because she had done something to me. So I was like, okay, this is a revenge thing, right? And it wasn't that big of a deal, but it's not who I am. It's not,
it went like, against your core, right?
It just went against everything that I'm not that person. And it's so funny because it wouldn't happen all the time, but every once in a while, I would turn around and this event would go through my mind, and it would go through my mind. And then, you know, like several months later, I'm thinking about Denise. Several months later, I'm thinking about Denise. 2 years passed, and all of a sudden Denise pops in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, like, why am I still thinking of this situation, you know, a gazillion years later? Why is this still happening? So I was just like, okay, we need to get this out on the table and talk about this and just say, okay. So, and I did. So I just sat down and said, Tracy, let's talk about this. I'm tired of having this thought go through my mind over and over and over again. So how do we fix this? Let's look at what you did and decide what we want to do with that piece of information. So you centered this girl out, you made her feel bad. And what is the problem with that? Well, the problem is that's not who I am.
So
that's
is part of it actually acknowledging all of it, where maybe
when
it would come in, it would just be fleeting points and you'd go, oh, I don't want to think about that. But this is you just getting into it and go, I'm going to just really blow it open and really see every aspect of it.
Okay. Okay. Because what happens is that when Denise kept popping through my mind, right, it was like, okay, you know what, I don't want to think about this, right? Because it made me uncomfortable. It's like, oh, I don't want to revisit that. I'm not really happy with how I acted to this girl in school. Like, this isn't cool. And so by doing that, that's why it keeps coming back.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you know what? You don't want to see it today, but I'll come back in a couple of months and we're just going to like have Denise pop into your head because like you're not dealing with it. Right. So that's why it was like, okay, I have to deal with this. I got to deal with it. So I don't know how long it took me, a couple of hours. I spent talking to my, you know, high school self and just said, okay, so you know what? I forgive you. It's okay. It's okay. I forgive you for what you did. That's not who you are. And that doesn't mean that that incident is a part of your core. That's not who you are. So I forgive you for how you responded and how you acted. And Well, I haven't thought of Denise, I don't know how long till now, talking about this. So you can have a conversation with yourself to go through that process.
And even I would think that even if it didn't pop in your head all the time, it obviously is subconsciously this underlying thing that you need to deal with, which again lightens you up, makes you feel lighter,
Yes.
because you're not
Yes.
carrying these little sacks of
Right.
crap that
Yeah.
you did throughout your life, because we all do crap throughout our life.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, we're humans. Of course, we're going to do that. But what's important is to realize that, you know, we evolve and we change and we become different people on an ongoing basis. Like the three of us, as we are right now, a year from now, when we're doing the same thing, our conversations are going to be so different. We are going to be different women. We're going to have a whole set of new experiences that's going to teach us, enrich us about what it is that is, you know, what it is that's going to shape us a year from now. And
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
But you don't want to hang on to the garbage that you did, like, you know, like back when I was like 16 years old. Like, what's that doing for me? Nothing. So like, let's just deal with it.
I think important factor though within forgiveness is when you forgive, you do have to release it and let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not
Because-
true forgiveness.
Well, I have been forgiven for something, but then it was always thrown up in my face.
Mm.
So
Classic.
right, classic. So if you are forgiving someone, or if you are forgiving yourself, that's an end to what has been on your mind, what you're forgiving, whatever. You don't allow it to still wreak havoc in your mind or anything, because then there's something deeper and you haven't forgiven.
Yeah.
So when you forgive, you do have to release.
And,
You
okay,
don't-
so what does that mean? What does release mean?
Well, I was just going to say, you might not forget the whole situation, but you have to release the emotion around that situation. You have to release the anger that you felt or the hurt you felt. You don't have to forget the situation, but you have to release the emotion that's there.
Yeah. Yeah. That I
But,
think
but,
is.
but that's what I'm asking. So how I'm sitting here, I've forgiven whoever, and now I want to release that. Do I do something physical? How do I, if I've never done
Right.
this before, allow myself to release it?
I think it depends on what you're releasing.
Okay.
For me, there's been different proven things, but when I had my conversation with my dad, it was me having a cup of tea. There was a picture of him, one of my favorite pictures of him. My partner's out of the house for the week. And so it was just him and I had nice music on and I had the conversation. And afterwards, when it was done, I felt comfortable. I got out my journal and I wrote not an apology, but everything that I felt I wanted to write. And the last sentence I wrote was, "Dad, I love you, but I am releasing my guilt." So that was my permission for me. I know there are people who have written letters,
Right.
and then you take that letter and you burn it. Like you're burning away that pain. You're burning away the hurt of that whole thing. So I think you have to find what's for you, because me writing it in,
cry. It might be just like cry.
right. For me, writing it in my journal and doing what I did is what works for Michelle.
Okay.
For you, Tracy, it might have to be something a little bit more dramatic or undramatic. It depends on your personality. It depends. Right. You could have had the conversation, washed the cup of tea out and said, "Talk to you later, Dad," and everything would have been fine.
Right.
So I think it's how that person feels comfortable in it.
And to acknowledge that they released it, however they've done it, is to really put a, what do you call it? Put a bow on it?
I think you release it because you connect to it.
Okay.
Like you connect to the emotion. So a lot of times we try to name our emotions. We try to say, oh, this is what sad feels like. This is what happy is like. Sometimes I think if we just say, okay, I don't need to label this at all. All I need to do is I need to connect to that vibration that's taking place in my body, wherever that is, and identify where it is. Like, is it in my chest? Is it in my stomach?
Yep.
Is it in my legs? Like, where is that actual feeling happening? And then just to really connect with it, and to just to sit with it and go, okay, so this is what I'm feeling.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when you
Here-
do that, it literally leaves your body.
You will feel it. You will feel that comfort. There's a wave of comfort like that comes over you. So it's not like for Tracy, she had a conversation with her younger self. She said it was a couple hours.
Right.
My conversation with my dad was 25 minutes.
Mm.
Two totally different time frames, but the same result.
My younger self is so argumentative, though, like, seriously. So, I had to put her in her place. Like, it's like, come on, Tracy, settle down here.
And I can't tell anyone any good advice about forgiving, because I haven't forgiven anyone for years. I'm joking.
You're so funny.
No, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood exactly like the steps that they can take. And there's no wrong way, of course. It's just really feeling that that love for yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's what it creates,
Yes.
is it creates that self-compassion piece. It's like, you know what, I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to be kind to myself, and I'm just going to let go of this ickiness that I'm feeling, and just love myself because I can, because that's such a better way. It's such a better way. It's like we talk about, people trying to get things done, and it's like, for I don't know how long we've been beating ourselves up, like somehow that's going to motivate us to do something, right? It's like we tell ourselves we're useless and worthless, and like, what's wrong with you, and just to try and get us to do something. And it never works. It never works. When we come at a scenario with, okay, come on, let's have some self-compassion about this. It's far easier to do it, far easier to get the thing done.
Yes. So people, forgive yourself, forgive others. And if you have practiced any type of forgiveness, other than what the three of us have talked about, well, not Tracy, because she doesn't forgive anybody or done any forgiveness. We're going to have a little intervention with her after this recording. But anyways,
work to do the next couple of days.
Anyways, let us know. Let us know how you have practiced forgiveness. We would love to hear. And don't forget, Miss Tracy, what button do they have to hit?
Subscribe.
Yes.
Subscribe.
Hit the subscribe, notification, share with your friends. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you as a regular member of our community.